I'm thrilled now to have someone that I've worked in the community with long before Hurricane Katrina and certainly since. My friend, Brigadier General, retired from the U.S. Air Force, the current executive director of Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, my friend Joe Spraggins. How you doing, Joe?
I'm fine. How are you, Ricky?
So listen, man, you think back, we can remind people about your role just before Hurricane Katrina and after. It's amazing that it's been 20 years ago, but when you reflect to people, how do you talk about the unenviable position you found yourself in?
Well, it was a situation that, you never know what you're going to get to till you start a job. And, we picked August 29th as a day that I would start. And we picked that month in advance. So we didn't know that was going to be a day that we were going to have that big natural disaster. But, the good Lord puts you in the right place at the right time sometimes to do what he, and the good thing about it, he gave me a lot of people to help me.
Yeah, he really did. Tell people who don't know about the job you had and why it was so important to us.
Well, I was I took over as the I guess it was the director of emergency management and homeland security, kind of like civil defense, all of those all at one time. And that was for Harrison County. And it was the actual day was August 29, 2005 that I was supposed to start. Obviously, because of knowing what was happening, the week before we were looking at the hurricane and we was looking at other things, and I was working with Harrison County, and I was there all weekend, for the weekend prior to it. So we made sure that we had things operating. It was a situation to be able to try to help and save as many people as we could, because we knew, especially on Saturday night, we knew Saturday night that it was going to be bad. And so we knew then that we had to start doing everything we could to try to save as many people as possible.
Joe, it was a very interesting time. In fact, we wrote about this at the Sun Herald. We talked about it. In some ways, we were even critical about it. But if you remember so well, the models actually had it coming in somewhere in South Louisiana, but the official National Hurricane Center track was still showing the Florida Panhandle as late as Friday. And then they made that shift. And most recently, just in the past few days, it represented one of the biggest shifts they've made, where they went from the Florida Panhandle toward New Orleans. And then what that did is put into motion, contraflow, mandatory evacuation of New Orleans. A lot had to happen in a very short period of time. It was kind of mayhem there for a period of time, wasn't it?
It was. And, as we had the same problem, also the year before we had numerous storms over in the panhandle of Florida and Alabama, and they were planned to, one minute they were coming to Mississippi, the next minute they were going somewhere else. And so a lot of people, especially like Dennis and Ivan and all, had, during those storms had evacuated and then had to, turn around and come back. And so people were like, okay, come on, is this real or not? And when the storm was building, and obviously when it was on a Saturday night, when it was sitting there at a Category 5 and a huge storm and up to almost 200-mile-an-hour winds, well, we knew it couldn't move too much at that point. And we knew it had to have a pretty much path on it. But the problem is what we couldn't get people to understand, as the wind started to break down a little bit, the water never broke, and the water was still coming, and we still had Category 5 water. And instead of having a 10-mile wide eye, we had a 40-mile wide eye that was stretching across there. And so it was going to take the whole Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And trying to get people to understand that. And of course, everybody's had this same thing. Well, I lived through Camille. I stayed right here in this house in Camille. Well, this wasn't Camille. This was a different story. Camille mainly hit Pass Christian, that area, but the point is, it wasn't as wide an eye that we had coming across there. And getting people to understand that we could have 20 to 30-foot tidal surges. And they was like, oh, yeah, okay, I've heard this before. And, that's the biggest problem when you have with emergency management, especially, is trying to get people to understand the urgency of what is it. You can't predict it, just like we can't predict tomorrow, this afternoon, if it's going to rain 100% or not. The weather channel can go back and say, hey, there's a good chance you're going to get some rain, but we don't pick every spot it's going to rain in. And so it's tough. And the people, they finally, a lot of them did. The contraflow coming out of Louisiana was unreal. And so it was bottlenecking everything around Hattiesburg. So we had to just make a command decision and basically say that we're going to disperse to the east and then go north. And so we started dispersing people over to the Mobile area and letting them go north off of 65. And that was a big thing that helped us a lot. That was something that wasn't normally done, but but at least DOT worked with us and said, "Hey, we'll work this out and we'll make it work." Because when you're trying to get 1 million people out of New Orleans and trying to get 500,000 people off the Gulf Coast, there's a lot of people moving at one time.
Yeah, it was an incredible moment. I mean, as you know, A.J. Holloway was famous for saying that Camille killed more people in 2005 than it killed in 1969 because people made that decision to stay. Camille was a huge storm at the time, one of the greatest in the history of America, but it was a smaller storm. And what happened as a result of Hurricane Katrina is that the entire approach to storm surge warnings and all of that changed. And it was really important because the point that you made is that as Katrina went through these eye wall replacement cycles, it grew in size and it carried, just this massive water that came with it. And thank goodness we do have a new warning system in place now and these estimates that they are able to let us know ahead of time where the storm surge is expected to be. So we learned a lot from it. I mean, every storm you were able to make adjustments. It's quite unfortunate that we didn't have that prior to Katrina, but Katrina changed. It showed us the previously unimaginable is actually possible now. And a lot has changed. I think really, Joe, and you know this better than most, the warning systems we have today are much better and much more refined. And I think going to give people a better idea of what to expect the next time. And there's going to be another storm. It may not be Katrina. Let's hope to God it's not. But we're in a much better position now to give people even better warnings than they had before. And all it takes is one, and every storm's different, isn't it?
It is. And that's, I was talking to a podcast yesterday, and that was one thing I tried to explain to people, that you can look at every hurricane that's ever hit the United States of America and not any one or match up against the other one. There is something different about every one. Hey, just go back to George and look how much rain we had in 1998 with George. And the rain was unreal, and a lot of people flooded. And then we turn around and go back to Katrina and look at what happened. And they was homes that had never had a drop of water in them in any storm for all these years. And then next thing you know, they're wiped away because of Katrina, and Katrina came across and with that Category 5 water and 8 hours. It wasn't just a short storm either. It was, it was one that just kept lingering and kept lingering and kept lingering. And so that caused a lot of the issues too, because the water was coming in and weakening. The wind had already weakened some, and then the water would weaken it more, and then the wind would hit it again. And, structures just couldn't hold up. They just couldn't hold up to what was happening to them. And a lot of people that night, we were getting calls all night long about, I'm on the rooftop, I'm in my attic, and, and I'm like, okay, you got 10 foot of water in your house. How do you expect me to get to you? We can't get there. You got 100-mile-an-hour winds. We can't get there, and the water's that high. So hopefully we were trying to find as many as we could. And, we marked down the places where people said they were at. And we were there looking for them as soon as we could to make sure that we could try to save them. And thank the Lord, a lot of them were saved. A lot of them.
Listen, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of them swam, from the back bay all the way to almost Keesler Air Force Base. So it was amazing.
Yeah. Listen, you said 8 hours. The name of our first Katrina book, we published 2. The first one was called 8 Hours That Changed the Mississippi Coast Forever. And it sold nearly 100,000 copies, a New York Times bestseller. There was such a thirst to understand this storm by not just people here locally, but people all over the country, maybe even around the world. It was an amazing thing. And the other point that you made, good thing it was a daytime storm, because the number of people who had to swim out of their homes, if it would have been a nighttime storm, the death toll would have paled in comparison to what it actually was. When we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Joe Spraggins, looking back on the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I have my friend Joe Spraggins, who's retired from the Air Force. He is the executive director for Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. And as I've said many times, he's a cat with about 100 lives. He could have retired and rode off into the sunset a long time ago. But one of the most important roles he played was working with Harrison County in the head of the emergency operations, civil defense, and all of that. Literally, his starting day was the day Katrina hit. So as a result of that, he had to start a few days ahead of that. But Joe, I remember in the wake of the storm, I finally got over to the Emergency Operations Center to say hello to you. And I remember, you were tired. I was tired. But I remember how pleasant it was to see you. It was just happy. I was just happy to lay eyes on you. We had both been through hell, but there was also a sense of hope. And that's the thing that kept us moving forward, isn't it?
It is. And, I tell people all the time, during the storm, with nothing we could do about it. But after the storm, it was an amazing what South Mississippi, and not just South Mississippi, America did, and people all over the world. And everybody was coming to help. They didn't matter where they were from. They did it. I think it goes back to, we laughed about it a lot of times, that everybody was equal. Nobody was rich, nobody was poor. We were all poor because we didn't have anything. Nobody had anything. Money didn't mean anything because you couldn't buy anything. And, so it was basically, it wasn't anything to buy. It was going to be whatever we could get the people to be able to do. And all the pouring in of all the people bringing all the food and the water and the clothing and other things for people, it was just unreal. And as I've told a lot of them, it shows you what America's all about. It shows you exactly what America's all about. As Haley said, we hitched our britches up and went to work, but America hitched theirs up and went to work with us.
They sure did, didn't they? Yeah.
And it was so many people.
Yeah. I said that Katrina was an equal opportunity destroyer. No bosses, no workers, no rich, no poor, no Republicans or Democrats. We were all together in that moment. I had a friend of mine who is a doctor who lives on the water, not far from me. His practice was destroyed. His home was destroyed. And he essentially said, I ate bologna sandwiches for 2 years trying to rebuild all of that. I mean, he's doing extremely well today, but it was such a difficult path. So many underinsured, or in some cases not insured, but it was an equal opportunity destroyer. And when we stripped all that other stuff that divided us away for that time after Hurricane Katrina, as I said so many times, you got to see what was in the heart and soul of Mississippians, and you got to see what was in the heart and soul for America. And man, that was inspiring to see, man. I love writing about it. I love thinking about it, because we get to see what really matters in a moment like that, don't we, Joe?
We do. And, and it is amazing, just amazing, how many people care. It's, I talk about the group out of North Carolina. I think it was the Baptist Association out of North Carolina. And then we had the Methodist Association that came down. We had the Catholics. We had the Jewish Association. Everybody. It was, it didn't matter. Religion, it was, a religious organization. They were coming. And it was somebody here always, and they were always here to help us. And they brought in so much. And, and they didn't just come for a day or two. They were here for years. And they were here for years to help people. And thank the Lord for blue tarps. I tell you what, I don't know how we would ever made it if we hadn't been able to invent somebody being able to get all those blue tarps down and people putting them on people's houses. so that they could keep the water out. The good Lord didn't let it rain on us for a couple of weeks. That helped some and give us a
Yeah.
little bit. But and then after that, we were able to put the blue tarps on the houses and do the things that need to be done. And then people just coming in, and I mean, you didn't. No matter where you went, if there was a spot of land that was open, there was something sitting on it with people that were from somewhere else than not from South Mississippi that were here to help. And I mean,
Yeah, I
and that
know.
was just the way.
It was I call it the volunteer cavalry. The volunteer cavalry came in so many forms. The other thing that was interesting is how long they stayed. I remember years after Hurricane Katrina learning that the North Carolina men's organization was still here. And, the irony of that is that this past hurricane season that North Carolina would be hit so hard. And I'm sure that I pray that people came to their assistance the way that they came to our assistance. But so inspiring to see what our fellow man is willing to do to help each other, isn't it?
It is. And matter of fact, First Baptist Church, we have had numerous trips to North Carolina to help. And I got one leaving, I think, this next month going again. And so, but they still need help up there. It's going to take them time, just like it took us time.
Yeah.
When we first came out of that, I remember me and you sitting down and when we was trying to put all these things together, and we were talking about how long is it going to take, and we said 10 years, and well, how about 20 years, and we're still not there. But 10 years was about minimum to get any back of semblance of what we needed. And
because you had to rebuild, you had to rebuild infrastructure and so much. It took so much for us to get back. But we're out of town for the time for today, Joe. But it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
You too, my friend, and thank y'all for what you're doing. And everybody in Mississippi, just remember, don't get complacent.
Never. All it takes is one. Be ready. Yeah. Always be ready. God bless you, my friend. This has been Joe Spraggins, and a great show today. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.